What got you started on your election integrity journey?
The 2020 election, when Biden was declared the winner with 81,000 votes, that just seemed absurd to me. There were states that had some very suspect activity, and it turns out that a lot of that stuff was true. There were problems. So we started looking at election integrity here with a focus on Marin County. I first did that with the Marin GOP. We found out they weren't that serious about election integrity. So we started our own committee, which we needed to do so that we could gain access to the voter rolls. Getting access to the voter rolls is key. And we not only observe elections, we analyze the election results. And then this past spring and summer, we found that, trying to change an election after it occurred is nearly impossible. So what we're trying to do is prevent problems with the upcoming election. And the way to do that is to make sure that we have clean voter rolls. So our current effort is to clean up the voter rolls. And then very soon here, we're going to change our effort to observing the election. And so anyway, I hope that answered your question. That's how I got interested, and that's how we got immersed.
You
So
went around Marin County, you and your team, and you knocked on doors and you looked for people who had previously received ballots to see if they actually lived there. Now, what did you find when you did that?
okay, so we were given a list of voters, 337 voters, broken down by a zip code. So we had teams of canvassers. We had about a dozen teams of two people each. And we had two people because it facilitates the interviews and it offers a degree of safety because we had a lot of elderly women. We wanted to make sure that they all felt safe. But anyway, we would approach a home, knock on the door. One of us would do that. We'd step back. We tried to be as non-intimidating as possible. We tried to dress nice. Nice. We didn't have any voter or party paraphernalia on us. And we would tell them, "Hi, we are here. We're looking for Joe Smith." That'd be the registered voter that was at that address. And most of the time they'd say they don't live here any longer. They haven't lived here since 2020, or they moved to Texas, and I moved in here at such and such a date. Well, we would try to record that information. The big one, did that voter on the list live at the address? That was the primary question, and then we would ask supplementary questions to reinforce the data that we were collecting, and try to just verify the veracity of the data that we had. And we found that most people were very, very cooperative. It doesn't matter what party they're in. Everybody wants to make sure that we have clean voter rolls. And that was, we thought we'd have problems, and we kind of fibbed a little bit. We'd say, look, we're here to make sure that this voter gets their ballot. So that was somewhat true, but the primary concern was to verify, did they still live there? Because that's the action that we're finding, that the register of voters has to clean that voter up and get them off the rolls. So anyway, we had a lot of help from people. We're very helpful.
And so, how many houses did you go to?
Okay, we had a list of 337, and statistically, we had to hit 180 to have a high degree of certainty that the findings of the 337 of the list that we were given was good. We ran out of time, and we checked out 145 voters, and it turns out that 140 moved. Now, the 5 that we did find that actually still live there, they tended to be service members. They moved to another location. They had another mailing address, but they were still associated with that residence. That's where they lived, and they wanted to continue voting. They were okay. That was so that's something you don't pick up on the National Change of Address database. So we verified that some of the voters were good. So
Okay, so you got 140 out of 145. That's a huge number of problems relative to the houses that you went to. But I guess we should point out this was a curated list designed to find people who were likely to have moved. the 145 wouldn't be a random sample of households in Marin County.
No, these were all people, we were given the list of 337 that all the data showed that they moved. First, they were listed as active voters on the Marin County rolls, and two, they had moved to another state based on a change of address forms that were received by the U.S. Post Office. That data then gets put into their national change of address database, and that was what was used to determine that they moved from the state.
Okay. So based on where we are now, would it be your expectation that these 140 problem voters will all be receiving ballots in the November election in Marin County?
No, our expectation is that the Register of Voters will have sent them a postcard, a verification postcard, asking them, do you still live at this address? And if they write back and say no, then she should cancel them. They should come off the voter roll or be to have their status changed to canceled.
And do you think that's happening?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So
I don't think
if those cards are not going out, then these 140 ballots will be sent to these individuals in the November election. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there should be these verification cards sent out based upon the information that you've provided to the officials in Marin County, but your belief is that those cards are not being sent out.
That's true. Now, let me just point out that she cannot take our data and just change the status of a voter. That is, it's not legal for her to do that. She has to go through the process that's specified in the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. That process is you have to send that voter a verification card. If you don't hear back from them, then you can take them off the roll. And I believe they actually have to send it twice. They have to try 2 times. So they're either going to get a response that says, I still live here, I do not live here, or they're going to be ignored twice. And if they get a response that they don't live there, or they've been ignored twice, that's enough to remove them from the rolls and comply with both state and federal law.
So as soon as they got this 140 names from you, they should have immediately sent out 140 postcards.
Yes.
Okay. And what makes you think that that has not happened?
Because they have not contacted me at all. They have not responded to this letter. I specifically requested, we're available to meet with you and help you do this. We want to help. We're trying to be helpful. We're not trying to put people on the spot, but we think it's important to notify them, you have a problem with the voter roll, or we have a problem with the voter rolls, and you're in a position to do something about it. And in fact, you are required to do something about it. That's your main responsibility as the registrar of voters. And so I haven't heard a response from them. I did approach, I saw both the sheriff and the district attorney at a private speaking event. And afterwards, I approached both of them separately. They want nothing to do with this. Even the sheriff, I said, look, there are some potential felonies that exist right now. For example, people that are using a mail store or a commercial business as their residence. That's against the law to do that. That's a felony. Potential felonies are if the Register of Voters mails people a ballot that should not receive a ballot in the mail. And but she made the excuse that, oh, I can't talk to you in a private setting, and oh, by the way, we turned everything over to the county council and you'll be hearing from him. Well, it's almost a month now and I haven't heard from anybody. So their tendency is to circle the wagons, and just based on past experience with Lynda Roberts, she's a very nice person, but whenever you point out any problems, her first response is to defend her department and defend her staff. She's really has not shown an inclination to get to the bottom of any problems and resolve them. She's very protective of her staff and her department. So that's why we are preparing to a TRO, temporary restraining order. We're seeking injunctive relief, and we hope we don't have to do that. But actually, the immediate first step is to get what they call a ballots issued list. They should have that available very soon. It costs about $80. The Marin Election Integrity Committee is prepared to spend that money to get that list. We then have another database that we can use to compare against all of those other spreadsheets that were included in that transmittal letter for the August 1st letter to the register of voters. So we can find out if they removed those voters that should be removed from the active list.
Do you have any plans to go back to those 140 households, perhaps after the election, and see if those individuals received ballots?
No, I'm not sure that we would be able to do that. That's kind of bordering on harassing the residents. I mean, we did enough to confirm that the registered voter that's receiving that residence is listed as a residence. They live in another state, and they should not be mailed a ballot at that. They should not be mailed a Marin County ballot anywhere. A lot of those voters, they have their residential address and they have a mail address that's out of county or out of state. And we want those verified too. So in our view, she should be sending them a verification postcard because I mean, they can only send a ballot to the resident where they live, but we believe they're sending, or we know that they send ballots out of state. We've had people send us ballots from, say, Colorado or Texas. I said, well, we don't know why. We haven't been voting here in California for years, but they sent me a ballot. And it's like, what's up with that? So
how many counties in California were involved in doing this?
16 actually did all of the canvassing in numbers adequate to have reasonable analysis results. But those 16 counties account for 63% of all the votes cast in California. They include Orange County, LA County, Riverside, all of the big counties. And so Marin is the smallest one of all the counties.
Do the other counties have a similar result from what you found?
Yes, we actually got a lot of help from the people in Sonoma County. They actually started this effort first, the Sonoma County group of Patriot Force people. And kudos to Rhonda Provost. She led that effort on her own for the longest time, and she finally got a bunch of people helping her. But they gave us a lot of help for the big push at the end of May. So kudos to her. But Sonoma County is 1.5 to 2 times the size of Marin County as far as registered voters go. And there are some other interesting relationships between Marin County and Sonoma County. If you go read our report on the November 2022 election, that too is on our website. You'll find the very strange relationship between election results between Sonoma County and Marin County. It leads us to believe that results are pushed down from the state to the counties. It's not from the county up, it's from the state down. There's very strong evidence to suggest manipulation at the state level.
I see. Manipulation at the state level would mean that the state officials are manipulating election results to achieve a certain desired result?
Yes.
Okay, so you can't prove that, but that's your something you suspect after reviewing the results.
Yeah, and the first thing that really got me hooked on election integrity, we had a fellow show up at our meeting. He's a former financial analyst. He's busted people for embezzlement and stuff like that. So he really knows how to get his arms around data and find unusual relationships. Well, he noted that he went back to 1960 and looked at all of the votes for U.S. House Representative. And from 1960 to 2020. So he found that, and he looked at just the Democrat registrations. And he did that because the Democrats have always pretty much dominated voter registrations in California. But in doing that, he found some very interesting results. In 1960, Democrats accounted for about 54% of the registered voters. and they always got between 47 and 50% of the vote. In other words, the vote they captured was always less than the percentage registration of Democrats, and that made sense because of turnout. But then as we progress towards current times, 2020, we noticed that the curves inverted about 1996. It's like they started capturing more than a larger percentage of the vote than the number of registrations, to the point where it is today. They captured in Marin, well, in the state, I'm sorry, they capture about 67% of the vote of the U.S. Representatives, the congressmen. And we looked at them because it's a very consistent record. Every 2 years, we're voting for a congressman. Well, they capture 67% of the vote, but they only count for 44 or 45% of the registrations. And we're wondering, what fills this 21, 22% gap? Well, he overlaid on that curve the implementation of electronic voting systems, which started about 1996. It was very slow at first, and then it accelerated. And you could see as counties started implementing electronic voting systems, you saw the percentage of vote captured by Democrats increasing, just following right along with it. And it's plateaued about 67% now, and where we have 100% of all the counties use an electronic voting system. We went further than that. We thought, okay, who are these people they're not Democrats, who are they? Who's doing the voting? Well, we found that it was the no party preference. So now the people that are no party preference, they think they're independent voters. They're really not. Before 2006 or 2002, I'm not sure when it happened, sometime in that area, you used to be able to decline to state, and you would not go on the voter rolls. But ever since they implemented the motor voter, when you go to the DMV and you decline to state, they say, oh, no party preference, and they treat that like a party. You go on the voter rolls. So your name is on the voter rolls, whether you vote or not. And you're going to get a ballot, whether you want to be a Republican or independent or Democrat or not. The point is, they've got a name that's on the voter roll now. And so that's another opportunity for them to manipulate the electronic data and control the vote. So what we found is that growth in the gap between votes captured by Democrats and the percentage of Democrat registered voters, that growing gap was almost matched identically with the growth of no party preference. And that looks, I mean, it's very suspicious. Okay. So we don't know how they're doing it, but we see these overlays of anomalies again and again. And other data suggests that I mean, we've interacted a lot with people in the Marin County Elections Department. And believe me, by and large, I mean, these are just rock solid citizens. They think they're doing their civic duty. They want to have fair elections. We're not accusing anybody in that department of wrongdoing. But we've come to the conclusion that these results are being pushed down by the state. Now, keep in mind that they like to say, oh, our machines are not connected to the internet. They have to be connected to the internet for the Voters' Choice Act system to work. And I'll give you a little explanation why. There are 21 vote centers in Marin County. You can vote at any one of them. So we've got to make sure that if I live in Novato, I go vote at a vote center in Novato, then I run down to Sausalito and try to vote there. I can't. They will know that I already voted, because as soon as I go to the Novato vote center and ask for a ballot, boom, the Secretary of State knows that I was given a ballot in Novato, and they're not going to allow me to get another one. Well, the only way they can do that is if they're connected to the internet. And so they're able to track. Now, they don't know how I voted, but they know my party registration, and they know that I voted. And you can surmise that most Republicans vote conservatively, most Democrats vote liberally. And so depending on the candidates or whatever ballot measures are on the ballot, you can presume that, Democrats are going to vote one way, libertarians are going to vote, Republicans are going to vote another way. So you can kind of guess how an election is going to turn out just from the number of people that voted for every party. And believe me, we've seen these reports. It's called an AVMR 130. At any given time during the ballot processing, they can push a button and it kicks out this report that says, oh, we have processed 40,000 ballots and 30,000 Democrats have voted, 10,000 Republicans had voted, and 4 Greens, 1,500 Libertarians. So they know who voted by party. They've got another form that's similar, and it breaks it down further by precinct. So you can find out how many people voted by party by precinct, and that's multi-page report. That first one I described, where it's just vote by party, that's summarized in 1 page. Well, you can take those reports and get them periodically during the ballot processing period, which lasts at least 30 days. It's more like 45 days, about 15 days before the election and up to 30 days afterwards. And you can use those to create what's called a cast vote record. And that gives you some very interesting results. We use that data and the 1% hand count of the, let me back up a little bit. Those AVMR reports that tell you who voted by what party, not who they voted for, but just which party members voted, those are mail-in ballots only. Those are ballots that go through the mail sorter in the basement of the civic center. When you go to vote at a vote center, you don't get an envelope. You get a bare, unfolded ballot. You vote that, stuff it in the machine. Later, it gets sent to the civic center for separate processing. So those numbers are not included in these AVMR 130 forms. Those numbers are, we got those numbers that came from the vote centers after the election closed. They process those first, and they do their 1% tally to check, to verify the election results. And during that 1% tally, they tell you how many ballots came from each vote center. So we knew there were about 8,300 ballots that came from vote centers in the November election, and the rest of them were mailed, and they went through the vote processor. Where you add those all up, the vote center ballots and the mail-in ballots, it should have equaled 129,000. But they only the certified vote was 121,000. So we're wondering, okay, what happened? Where did those 8,000 ballots go? They have yet to give us a satisfactory answer to that.
Okay. You got 140 hits on people who weren't where they were supposed to be when you went door to door. What was that number for the 16 counties?
Their analysis identified the number of active voters that moved from California in all 58 counties, but only these counties that have an asterisk were verified by canvassers. So Alameda's a big one in the Bay Area. Fresno's kind of big. Marin County right here, you can see, is 337. The big ones, where's LA? Let's try to find LA. Los Angeles, 16,000 people. Orange County, 3,200. I'm actually surprised it's that low. San Diego County, 5,200. So again, these are active voters that have moved out of California. And I think they were all, the percentage, I could look through it here. It's in the report, I'm sure. Of all those voters, 54% completed the survey. A very few number refused, a couple no answers, and the results are let me see if we have. Okay, so in those 16 counties, they confirmed a majority of 2,251 registered voters were not living at the residence on record. And specifically, these were voters that moved out of state. They were able to confirm that. Now, bear in mind that there are also voters that move out of county that shouldn't be receiving a ballot. They're not in this number. This report focuses on moved out of state only. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. So for the 16 counties, the statewide version of the the 140 number for Marin would be 2,251.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's accurate to say that the results of this 16 county survey are that 2,251 people are getting ballots who should not get ballots. We know that.
Yes. Now, what I don't know is if, pick a number for, let's go back to that
Yeah, and then
chart.
just to follow up on that, so 50, what we would also say is that 56,674 people, some very high percentage of those people are getting ballots when they shouldn't get ballots.
Yes. So let's pick LA County here. That's the biggest county, hands down. They had 16,000 people that are on the rolls and they moved out of state. Now, I would guess that I don't know how many people they have registered to vote in Los Angeles County, but I would say that even if a small fraction of these people actually cast a ballot, they would exceed the limit on ballot errors in Los Angeles County, and they would not be able to certify the vote in Los Angeles County. So, that's I'm guessing at that, but I do know that with Marin County, there's 337. We only need one or two of those to cast a ballot. And bear in mind that once, if they get mailed a ballot and they're out of state and they cast that ballot and drop it in the mail and get returned, everything looks fine to the Register of Voters. They are an active voter on the Marin County voter roll. Assuming they assign it, everything's going to be accepted, and that's going to be processed. And again, once that ballot gets extracted from the return envelope, there is no way to chase it down and find out who voted that ballot. So it's going to be an error that cannot be corrected. So all of these errors, if they can be corrected, then the election can be certified. But the only way they would be able to do that is if they flagged these people and got the sorter to kick those ballots out for confirmation later. And I don't know if they plan on doing that. I would hope they have a way to do that if they erroneously mailed them a ballot.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that they do. I mean, they're being very silent about this. And it's not just Marin County. Alameda County is doing the same thing. A bunch of they are circling the wagons, and just they're very upset about all of the attention that's being placed on the ROV and the voter registration files right now.
Okay.
They shouldn't be, because it's their duty to clean the rolls, and whatever expense they incur for cleaning those rolls, they get reimbursed by the state. That's in our state elections code. And we notified them of the problems and with plenty of time for them to correct the problem. And now they're running out of time. It doesn't matter. They haven't corrected the problem. They need to do something.
Okay. So this 56,674 voters, had you been able to get to all of those voters, what percentage of them do you think would have been invalidated or moved away? Would it be 80%? Would it be 90%? What do you think?
I think it'd be about 90%.
Yeah.
I think 90 to 95%.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
we've got 2251 confirmed statewide. So it's accurate to say that, thousands of people are voting who shouldn't be in California.
yes. Yes.
And I would say 2251 confirmed, but the total is expected to be much higher, somewhere around 50,000.
Yeah. So again, these are active voters that moved out of state only. That doesn't include dead people voting. It doesn't include people that moved out of county, let alone out of state. So I would estimate that you could take that number and multiply it by 10 for people that moved out of county and should not be receiving a ballot from those counties. So, you take Marin County, we have 1,600 So that, what is that? That's not 10 times, it's 5 times. But even at that, that's a huge number. So we have 1,600 people that moved out of county that should not be receiving a ballot. And again, this is based on information from the U.S. Post Office. We are using government data. It's not stuff we're making up. But we tried to verify it. And in many cases we did. In Marin County, we verified it at a rate of 140 over 145. So I would say that 320 of this 337 is probably they shouldn't be receiving a ballot in the mail.
Right. And if you think about people who are voting who shouldn't be from all causes, you're saying you might want to use a multiplier of 5. So it might be 250,000 voters statewide who are voting who shouldn't be.
Right. Now, I mean, these don't seem like big numbers, but believe me, they are enough to sway local elections. And we have no delusions. Marin County has really zero influence on state elections, state and federal elections. However, locally, these numbers of hundreds and thousands, that's enough to move propositions. It's enough to move local measures. It's enough to move school board races. We saw plenty of evidence of that in the 2022 general election. And it doesn't, I mean, so we see 8,000 ballots that were not counted toward the total. And we suspect that all of those came from the vote centers. And who tends to vote at vote centers? They tend to be conservative voters that vote on election day. And by and large, that's who votes at vote centers. And to discount those ballots, you're going to swing elections one way. And now, I'm not saying that occurred. I'm saying that we have yet to get a reasonable answer from the county. They keep changing their answer. So there might be a reasonable explanation. We haven't heard it yet. But, and again, we use their numbers. We don't make up any numbers at all. We use numbers that are given to us by the Secretary of State, by the post office, or by the Marin County Register of Voters. So we use
Now
their
you're going to
numbers.
ask for a temporary restraining order. And what will you be asking for in the temporary restraining order?
Okay, we want them to not send out ballots until they clean up until they properly maintain the voter rolls per the National Voter Registration Act. That's the key. In other words, all of these people that moved from Marin County, they need to be removed from the rolls or actually, marked as canceled, or I don't care if they cancel them. They just should not receive a ballot at all. So that's number one. There are tens of thousands of registered voters that haven't voted at all or haven't voted in the past several elections. They are suspect. They should not receive a ballot in the mail. And then there are nearly 2,000 voters who have an undeliverable address. So you start looking at, there's 1,000 here, 1,000 there, and all of a sudden you've got 10,000 ballots that are being mailed out that are suspect. They may go to someone, they may go to no one. Those ones that go to no one can be collected by anyone. Open those babies up, vote the ballot, put some phony signature on it, and drop it in the mail or drop it in a ballot drop box. The signature is going to pass signature verification. I guarantee it. And because the Marin County voter looks at the state law and says that they're supposed to bend over backwards accepting a signature. They're supposed to accept that any signature is valid, and it's really that ridiculous. And I have sat watching voter verification just to give you an idea how that's done. They have a bank of 5 computers with a big screen. They have a person sitting in front of each computer. Up 4 ballots come up at the same time and they look at the signatures. Now humans need about 16. So they show 4 signatures and then right next to it, the 4 signatures that they have on file. So they're comparing 2 signatures 4 at a time. Well, it takes a human on average about 16 seconds to compare signatures and see if they're valid. Well, they've got 4 of them to do. So that tells you 64 seconds or about a minute for each screen. They're passing these screens at 4 seconds, 5 seconds at a time. I mean, they're accepting everything. And the reason is they have to. That's a choke point in our ballots, our election system. It's just verifying signatures. That's what slows everything down. And so that's why we clamor for photo ID. If you have to give photo ID to vote, they don't need to do signature verification. It's already done when you go vote. So that, again, it's more than we want to get rid of the vote centers. We want to have precinct voting again. We like that because it's your neighbors know you. They just have a better sense of your vote is valid or not. And plus it gets all done in one day. Just a comparison, they have to hire about 150 to 200 people to work at the elections department during election season. They've got that many people that are working anywhere from 45 to 60 days. Okay. They have to train them and then they have to pay them to work. So that's, how many man days is that? So then you compare it with the one-day voting where we went and voted at our precinct. They had about 750 people working one day. Okay, they would collect the ballots, they would count the ballots, they would report it to the civic center. They'd have everything done that day or early the next day. We got results in one day, maybe 2. Now it takes 2 months to get at least a month to get results, and at significant expense. It costs a lot more to run an electronic election system than the old paper one. And we maintain, our committee maintains that those old paper ballot elections are more reliable. People have more confidence in them. They cost less money, and we get the results quicker. So that's why we're pushing to go back to the paper ballots. We also know that there are many, many avenues to cheat using an electronic system. There's no way that you can plug all the holes in an electronic system. There's always a way to cheat electronically. And that's just the nature of electronic systems.
When do you think you'll get a hearing on your temporary restraining order requests?
Well, I have to file it first, and there's quite a bit of work. I just started that process. And we're basically claiming that by allowing this to happen, that, well, there's 2 avenues. We're saying that you're allowing undocumented aliens to register to vote, and that means they're going to be sent a ballot, which means somebody, if not them, somebody's going to vote for them. And what that means is you are encouraging them to break federal law. They will be subject to deportation if they actually vote. And that's unfair. That's kind of like entrapment. And then as far as just other people, even legal residents that are not eligible to vote in Marin County, if they allow too many of those, and 2 is too many, then she will not be able to certify the election. And that's going to disenfranchise everyone in Marin County that casts a legal vote. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And we want a judge to say, look, you cannot mail ballots until you show that your maintenance of the voter rolls conforms with state and federal law. So all the questionable ballots, just don't mail them.
Oh, I see.
Just don't mail them. And then, so say I'm a legitimate voter and they think I moved out of state, but I didn't. If I didn't get my ballot, I would go to a vote center and ask to, and I would get a provisional ballot.
So you feel like you still have time to do this before ballots go out?
Yeah, they have time. Just think, well, they definitely had time a month ago. How long does it take to send out a postcard and then wait to get it back, or get no response? I mean, I think if they don't hear from them in a week to 10 days, they can say, okay, no response. Send them another one. Another week to 10 days goes by. They don't get a response. Okay, they've effectively got their answer. This person is not, eligible to vote in Marin County any longer.
And in the other 16 counties, are they also seeking these temporary restraining orders?
I don't know that yet. We actually, in Sonoma County, they have had much more cooperation with their sheriff and their register of voters than we have. They've actually met with them And we got them to understand the seriousness of the problem, and they're actually taking action in Sonoma County. We were
Okay.
hoping to see the same thing here in Marin County, but we haven't. Alameda County, they've dug in their heels too.
Okay.
They are
So
not going to look at it.
if a judge said, or if the county said, okay, we won't send ballots to those 337 people, then you'd be satisfied.
Yes. Or, they can still see, they have to start sending ballots on April 7th. They don't have to send them all on April 7th. And if they're trying to verify a voter status, I think they've got 5 days.
You said April 7th. Is that what you meant?
I'm sorry, October 7th. I'm
They have
sorry.
to start sending ballots October 7th.
Right, and then they have 5 days to mail ballots to all of the active voters. Well, they have ways to contact. I mean, if you say that you complete your mail-in ballot and you forget to sign it, drop it in the mail, and they get it, they're supposed to reject it. They're supposed to challenge that. They don't reject anything, they challenge them. So they'll look at that envelope and say, oh, Charlie, you didn't sign your ballot. They'll call you up, or they'll send you a card and say, hey, do you want to come in and sign your ballot? Or if they don't recognize your signature, they'll say, can you send us a new signature to verify that the one you sent us is valid. So they do a lot of contacting individual voters already. That's not, I mean, they try very hard to make sure that legitimate voters get to vote. It's not like they're denying that person a vote. We want them to verify that they are indeed still eligible to vote in Marin County. And they have ways to do that. They call them by phone, they can email them. A lot of voters like me, I leave my phone number and my email address, as well as my mailing address. That's all in the voter registration files. I would say at least 40% of the people have an email address. Probably 75 or 80% of them have a phone number.
Okay.
So, and when worst comes to worst, they can just send them a postcard to their residence. So
okay.
they have ways to reach voters.
Well, so give me the 1-minute summary for people who know nothing, and then we'll wrap this up. Just for someone who knows nothing, what would you say? Would you say we found evidence of hundreds of people in Marin County and thousands statewide who are getting ballots who shouldn't get ballots, and we're trying to bring that to an end, either through the court system or by working with election officials? Would you say something like that? Give me sort of a 1-minute version for someone who knows nothing, if you can.
Okay. Here in Marin County, we see tens of thousands of people that should not be mailed a ballot. We see hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, that should not vote in Marin County at all. And statewide, I would say we're approaching hundreds of thousands of people that should not be mailed a ballot.
So tell me about the problems you found in Marin County and statewide, and what remedy you'd like to see for that.
Okay, I can speak to Marin County because I've looked at those numbers very hard. There are tens of thousands of people that should not be mailed a ballot because their status needs to be verified by the Register of Voters. There are thousands of people that should not be voting in Marin County at all because they either moved from Marin County or moved to another state. You extrapolate that statewide, and again, I'm basing this on not my findings, but the findings of other people that looked at these other counties and at statewide. There are hundreds of thousands of people that should not be mailed a ballot. There are tens of thousands of people that should not be voting at all in the state of California. So we have some serious problems on maintaining voter rolls here in California.